Hey, I'm Philip. I'm the founder of Leela Quantum Tech, and yeah, if you want to be in better health and really do something to connect more with yourself, then definitely listen to the biohacking podcast, Hacked Life podcast with Joel. And yeah, so I think we have a lot great things to talk about.
Hey, what's up? Joel Evan here, host of the Hack Life podcast and weight loss coach for busy men. I'm excited to tell you I just dropped an 8-week program dedicated to motivated and busy men who want to lose weight. Let's face it, guys, when you lose weight, you feel more confident and you have higher self-esteem and you go out and you crush the world. You crush your goals and you start living your higher purpose. So if you're interested, DM me at Joel Evan Coaching or email me below, info@joelevancoaching.com. All right, I'm here with Philipp Samor von Holtzendorff-Fehling. He's the founder of Leela Quantum Tech. He's a coach, a conscious entrepreneur, an alpha chi teacher, and energy healer, and also has one of the longest names and most difficult to pronounce in the English language. Philip, welcome to the show, man.
Hey, Joel, thanks for having me. Really looking forward to this.
Yeah, I'm super excited to have you on. We're going to get into a lot of cool stuff. You know, I just was doing an Instagram story about you, talking about some of the cool stuff that you're doing with, we're going to talk a lot, I think, about EMFs and energy and some ways we can mitigate that with some of the things that you're doing. But before we get started with all of that amazing biohacking kind of, topics, can you kind of tell the audience, like, how you got started? Because I think, when I introduced you as all these amazing things that you're doing as a conscious entrepreneur and coach and alpha chi teacher. By the way, what is that? You're going to have to tell us that. And then, but you were also, it sounds like you were a lot in the business world, and then you made a huge transition. So I'm really curious how you got into this energy work.
Yeah, it's a great question, and it's indeed quite a long story because I used to be vice president at T-Mobile International, responsible for Europe and then in the US as well, and then in other places too. So big corporate. I also used to be at very small companies and startup companies. That's what I really enjoyed most in that business career. But then ended up in big corporate, and pretty early on in big corporate, I was like, all right, this isn't really my world. And I started to also realize, okay, there's so much more to life than what I had felt initially, when I grew up, because that was really just the material, what I can see with my physical eyes, that's what I believe. And there's nothing more. And I also, in my youth, really started to cut off the access to my feeling and to my intuition and all of that. And I started to really just be fully brain focused. And that
Yeah.
started to completely shift when I realized, God, there's so much more in life. So in parallel, I started to develop this because I got really curious and interested and started to do yoga, meditation. Then I met my wife at some point, and my wife, she was born with not having lost this, divine connection, if you will, and the conscious ability to see energy. So she saw aura, and all of that. And she's an energy healer, a coach, and for decades she has advised companies and individuals, on their life problems and difficulties from an energetic perspective. So that catapulted me also even more into that in the world of the unseen, if you will. So I
Mm.
developed that in parallel, and I wondered all the time, because when is it time for me to get out of corporate? But it really, there's always a time for something. And for whatever reason, it felt I needed to stay there for a while, maybe to just experience how that all is and how that all works. And at some point, though, there was the time where, this life that developed within me and this consciousness that grew in the corporate world, I couldn't blend this together. It just wasn't possible because I couldn't even talk about this in that world. Being an executive of such a company, you can't talk about these things because they just think you're nuts, right?
Yeah.
And so for me, at some point, it was like, okay, I can't live like that anymore. The stretch is too big. So I went out of corporate completely, and then just went into, okay, what is my passion? What is my calling? And then really felt like, okay, I can be myself now all the time. And it was such a relief. And then I started to get these callings on what I need to bring into the world, really. And then that's what I had been working on. And one was the C60 carbon 60 world that I was called to play a role in. And then certainly due to all the energy work and what I noticed that so many people have no clue that we're all energy and frequency and what's possible with that. But that's much more the reality than the reality we actually just, witness here in with our physical eyes. Um, I was called to, okay, so how can we just help humanity to just get to the next level? And then this quantum energy and frequency healing world presented itself even more, and I knew at some point, okay, this is something that I help roll out to humanity. And it sounds big. It's not that big because I mean there are many people doing amazing things, so many people, and but I feel like it's the time for the people to do what their calling is and what they can contribute, and then you have joy doing it, and then you can also help people, and that's pretty much what I've been doing. And yeah, so I mean, I had those blockages. I had no clue who I am. I had completely lost, I didn't know, anything anymore. So I had to work through all these blockages like crazy. And it took me a long time. It was super frustrating also sometimes, having a wife that can see everything, and you're like, really? And how can I get there? But now I know, and now I know why I also went through that path, that everybody has this ability to feel energy, to see energy, and to, expand into more consciousness and do amazing things on an energetic level. Everybody has that. It's not just a few people that can do that. It's just a matter of training. We've been completely untrained, and that's maybe what I can help with, and that's also what our products help with.
Oh man, so much to unpack. First of all, you know, that's I just find your story about meeting your wife amazing. I mean, I always think about. I think that's what wives are for, right? It's like most of the time they're there to course correct us, and they almost like see our blind spots and help us. What's not missing is like that's our better half, right? That's what helps fill that gap. So I find that just amazing. And then, when you say that you see energy or that she sees energy or blockages, like, can you just give an example? I mean, I'm assuming when I think of what you're saying, it sounds to me like chakras, or like she could just look at you and see like there's energy not flowing in here in this chakra or this energy field. Is that kind of what you're talking about, or anything specific?
Yes, on one level, that is what I'm talking about. So it's something, where a Western medicine doctor would, try to do their tests and lab tests and all of that energetically. You can look at a human being or an animal, any living organism, pretty much, and notice, okay, where's the issue? Maybe where's a blockage, and it could be chakra related. It could just be very physical also, but any physical situation or condition has its origin in the energetic, right? So if we're clear in the energy bodies, then it doesn't develop, a disease wouldn't develop in the physical. And that's something that most people have, forgotten that knowledge, that that is actually the case. And yeah, that's pretty much it. But then there's a little bit more to it also, and sometimes it's also about next steps and just people just trying to get that access back to their inner voice and their heart, because it's been so clogged from all the noise and the, difficult you know outer world situation. It's not made easy for us to, live free and have all the time we can dedicate to just finding ourselves, right? We're always dragged into dealing with something else, making sure we can pay our bills, um, all of that.
Yeah. And then real quick before we get into LeelaQ and your tech company and what we're gonna talk about today, I'm curious. Carbon 60 you mentioned. I had Ian Mitchell on the show. He's a Carbon 60 expert. I know you know him. What is your what you mentioned that you're affiliated with that. Like, what's your feelings about Carbon 60, and how does that kind of tie in with the energy work that you're doing?
Yeah, so C60 is fascinating in a way because it also helps us on a physical level and on an energetic level. Again, the energetic part is most people ignore that or don't realize that, but it really does help because it also works on a quantum level, if you will. It's such a tiny molecule and it spins in such an amazing way that it really uh, signals to our energy body and to our physical body, support, if you will. And it's a fascinating molecule. And yeah, we've been making C60 and selling C60, but not to consumers. Usually, that's just a little sideshow. Usually to other companies, and
Hmm.
we actually work fairly closely with Ian together. So he's been a great guy and partner, and yeah, such an amazing scientific brain also. So I'm less
Yeah.
from the scientific side, more from the energy side, and yeah.
Yeah, he is such an amazing human being, like you said. Matter of fact, just 2 days ago, when we moved to Idaho, my son, my 4-year-old, hit his head pretty bad. We were pretty sure he probably got a concussion. So I texted Ian, and he the next day he overnighted some of his special brain serum to help me out, to help my little guy. Which, by the way, I'll have to ask you if there's anything you would recommend. I know you sent me a heal capsule, and so I had him wear that as well, my 4-year-old, so we can maybe get into concussion protocols and maybe some other stuff that might be that you'd recommend.
Yeah, obviously, certainly, and we always need to say that our products are not intended to diagnose, treat, or prevent any disease. But certainly, the so-called heal capsule is designed to activate the inner healer, and what does that mean? I could really dive into that, but we may not have the time for that. So think of it as your self-healing powers. To activate your self-healing powers, and the body has the ability to heal itself. That's what it originally has. We lose this ability to know that we can heal ourselves over time, and this signal that we can remember that we can heal ourselves and how to do that is basically what the heal capsule helps activate. And so it has this specific frequency. It also contains the frequencies of about, I think, 78 different vitamins and minerals and organic plant extracts that are vital for the human body. So the frequency of those you also take in, as well as the frequency of the primal healing water, which is again something, but the body is mainly water if we think about it to a large extent. And if you can provide signals that support your body and your energetic system, then obviously you can get into self-healing mode and yeah, activate your immune system and all of that way quicker. That's kind of the idea behind it, and that's what
Hmm.
has been tested. And the capsule itself has been tested actually by various institutes and doctors' offices. So yeah, it has some interesting functions. A little capsule, but there's quite a lot in it.
Yeah. So actually, we'll backtrack for everybody because I kind of jumped ahead and just I jumped ahead. So the tech that you're making, let's talk about that. I know right now everyone's gonna say, Joel, you're crazy. Like that's just woo woo. That's matter of fact, I was at my sister-in-law's house the other day, and my nephew was like, "Hey, Tio Joel," he's like, "Hey, I was on YouTube the other day looking at this guy talk about how he could block EMFs with some wire." He's like, "Isn't this guy a quack?" And I didn't say anything, but so you've got a couple products out there. Let's just talk about a few of them. You've got these things called frequency cards. You've got these capsules, which anybody that's watching on video right now, I'm wearing a capsule. You can kind of describe it better than I can. I think it's made out of like a brass capsule. And then inside this capsule are these energetic balls that you actually put in, or I think these are the brass, is what I'm thinking of. And these are the brass balls, and there's, I think, 5 of them.
The spheres are out of
Spheres.
medical grade titanium, but you were right. The capsule itself is brass, And the frequencies that I mentioned, those are in the brass capsule. And then they're basically sealed with quantum energy so that they don't lose their effectiveness over time. So you don't have to recharge it ever. And then these spheres that you just showed, those are out of titanium, and they're charged only with pure quantum energy. And what that does is it boosts these frequency out of the capsule outwards further so that your whole system can really leverage it. And yes, I totally get that because I've been there. There's so many people out there that say that can't be, right? There's nothing like energy. Okay, those people, you've probably had at some point in your life a situation where you walked into a room of people and you felt a great welcoming energy, and you felt like, okay, cool, those are the types of people I want to interact with. Or you felt that there were maybe some people where there's just, it's very weird, and you
Yeah.
were like, I don't really go there. So what is that? It's nothing else but energy. And you can, there are countless examples of where we have that. We don't have our focus on it. um, and yeah, so let's talk about the technology, what it is and what it does, and how we can actually verify that it works. And because of the fact that I know that seers and energy healers, they can all see what happens with our technology easily, obviously. But I know that so many people can't. We focused very early on actual studies because I said, okay, we want to help people, but if they don't get it, it doesn't help either. So yeah, we work with two different institutes in Europe. One is the so-called EGEF Institute. It's the largest independent research and testing institute in Europe for EMF testing and research on EMF. They've been around for decades. And then the other one is an institute out of Austria called BESA, and they test the bioenergetic state and feedback of the physical body. And it's also actually a scientific method. Those people, they come from the Western medicine, they're all doctors, and then they move more into the functional medicine and have a very holistic view. So they get like really every part of medicine and they try to integrate it. And they use an
Wow.
advanced Deca Vol method on how they test. So they can literally test, how you are right now and where your issues are possibly. And then they can blast you with EMF as an example, maybe, put you in an electric car, give you an iPad, iPhone, and what have you. And then they test you again, and they'll show exactly how your measurements go down, or if they expose you to, some bad herbicide or pesticide or something, same things happen, that the body really reacts, and it reacts fairly quickly to it. And then they would give, these test persons our products and see what it does. And in 100% of the cases, the people were fully regulated afterwards at optimal levels. But then the EGIF Institute tested different things. So they test, we have certain EMF blocking clothing, actually, that on top of that we charge with, quantum energy. So they can test the actual blockage effect of those, whether it's our caps or t-shirts and stuff like that. But then they also use the so-called heart rate variability that some listeners may have heard of.
Yeah.
And it actually has a direct connection to the autonomic nervous system, right? So when your heart rate variability is off, your autonomic nervous system is off, and vice versa. And so they did the same thing. I guess they had 12 or 14 test persons, and then they would measure the heart rate variability. They would expose them to EMF, and then they would give them this capsule that you're wearing, and then they would measure again, and then they would measure actually over time also, because they found out the longer you wear it, the more it actually works. But it almost works instantly already. So just within a few minutes you see results. And last but not least, what we've also done is dark field microscopy studies by a doctor's office, um, in conjunction with the BESA Institute, because again, we wanted to show there's physical results, physical actions, reactions that happen. So, this is here, this is the
Yeah.
actual technology here. And so if I put just my hand in here for 5 minutes, and before I get blood tested under a dark field microscope, and then 5 minutes after, this is significant change. And that was in all the test persons. And I guess I sent you one example to just look at.
Yeah, I'll put that in the
It's
show
quite
notes.
fascinating. Oh, cool. Yeah. And that's where you're like, okay, so I may not see or really observe what this energy is, but I can maybe feel it if I'm fairly sensitive, or I take the time, or I can just look at scientific results or do that at home, right? I mean, to go to find a naturopathic doctor that can do dark field microscopy shouldn't be too hard. So why don't you go ahead and do that, right? So
Yeah.
it may be a fun thing to do anyway, and to see how your blood is doing.
Yeah, and like, so for people that are just listening to this, you just showed the audience a block, like it's like a gold block, and you can put your hand in it. And so a couple of things come into my mind. One is, okay, I believe you that the microscopic, and I've saw it. You showed me the photos. Like 5 minutes later, you put your hand in, you put it out. Like those are results. Like I'm all about results, and clearly you're getting results. My question is, how does this gold box, like anybody's going to look at that is going to say, how does this gold box give you energy? Like, that's just ridiculous. And then the second question I have is, I'm curious, because I know people are going to ask this is, oh, that's cool. How long do those effects last? Do you know? Like, is it just only while your hand is in the box and then you take it out and it goes away? Or does it have like some lasting effects?
Yeah, that's all great questions. So, starting with this last question first. So, how long does it last? It depends actually on the product. So, with a capsule, we can say that about 2 3 hours, after you put it away, you'll still have these effects, and the effects of the capsule really, in a very strong way,
Yeah.
and then it, goes down to not being there at all anymore, this energy and the frequency, but you still have some positive effects, that because the products are not designed to just work as something that just gives you some relief while you're wearing it, but it's supposed to actually remind the body and the energy system also to recreate that. So I can, it's sort of this ladder. Like you start here, and then, you use a product, and you're suddenly here. And then you stop using it, and you may go down, but you don't go down all the way. You go down
Mm.
here, and then you use it more. And then it's kind of like that, it's like in these steps. That's how I would describe it. And the time frames are a little bit different. So yeah, so I mean, we can maybe talk about some people that did some tests with autistic kids,
Oh,
and they
yeah.
actually worked with these blocks, and it's a fascinating subject because, it's not so well researched, how this autism actually works, and what you can do to mitigate it. And then these kids, they don't know what's going on, or what do
Right.
you do, right? You can't tell them, okay, you're now, there's something with a block that's sitting there. These kids, they were observed by a team and helped by a team, and they give these kids like grades throughout the day, and every day, where they say, okay, the behavior of this is, I don't know, 0 or 10, or I don't know, and it's just about behavior, and certain, things that they show. They're measured basically to just show, okay, maybe if they take different nutritions, it helps them to get better, or something
Right.
like that. And it was interesting because their measurements got so much better by using the blog, that I think they were on a 5, regularly on Mondays, and then on Mondays they introduced this, and then they suddenly were on an 8, which they'd never been on an 8,
Wow.
and even went up to 9, where 10 is the best. And it was only on Mondays, and Mondays used to be their worst day. Then they took it away, at
Interesting.
some point after a few weeks, to see, okay, what happens, and it did decrease again, but it didn't go all the way back to where they had started. So, yeah, then you can say, okay, so how many more weeks or months can they then be without it to not go all the way down? That's just something we don't know yet. But yeah, it's pretty much the step effect. And then, okay, so again, if people say there's nothing in it here, there's nothing I can say about it. I can only point to that we can measure the effects of what we do with it very, very clearly. And you can even measure just putting this in your home. And you can before you put it in your home, you can test your whole family. When you have a rabbit at home, you can test the rabbit too. And we've actually done that through the Besa Institute. Then you introduce this here because it harmonizes an EMF and neutralizes EMF in your whole house. It and does a few other things. You can measure that. You can measure that by looking at the body, and that's what you can do. And then you can take it away, and then you can measure again. So that's how you see those effects. And yeah, and we're doing a lot more studies, by the way, because I'm not done with studies. I think it's fascinating. And usually how we do it now is that we hear so many testimonials about one thing, like, for example, this autism, like that kept coming up. And the same thing with Lyme disease, actually. People that had chronic
Wow.
Lyme disease suddenly were emailing us and saying, this is amazing. I suddenly have the fatigue is almost gone. I have so much more energy. I feel like I'm coming alive again, and all of this, and then you're hearing this, and great, and then you're hearing this again and again and again. So now we're actually going to work on two different studies because doctors came to us. There are two doctors out of India that had witnessed some of these results with autistic kids, and they have a whole program with autistic kids, and they want to run a real clinical study. And we said, hey, yeah, absolutely, we'll support you. We'll provide the devices, and we'll help, with all of our knowledge about it, and you go run the study. We're a very small company. We're self-funded, and this is going to stay that way. And so we don't have such a huge budget. So it's a blessing for us that suddenly doctors come our way and other people that say, okay, no, we're going to run the study. We're so interested in looking at this, and we just help, where we can. And the same with the Lyme disease study that's actually going to happen here in the US. We're working on another dark field microscopy study. So we really do a lot and want to do a lot so that people can see what it actually does.
Yeah. Amazing. I mean, it's so cool. Um, and when you talk about the home and that block, it reminds me. I know there for some people they might know there's a product like a Somavedic, which I don't know. It's kind of the same thing. They say it's like this beautiful sculpted glass that has a light on it, and you put it in your home, and it gives you a certain square footage of like it can block and harmonize the home and protect you from viruses and protect you from block out EMFs. And so it reminded me when you said that you could actually this block that you guys sell kind of does the same thing as what you're saying.
It does the same thing, and it does it even better, and it does a whole lot more.
Oh
So
wow.
it maybe, what the Somavedic device does is maybe a tenth of what the block does, because you can do a whole lot more with it. So all the things that you just described, yes, it does it when you just have it sit at home. But then once you use it and put your hands in it, for example, it does way more. It goes way, way deeper. That is one thing. In addition, so by the way, this is the Infinity block. It's the larger device. I don't have the so-called quantum block here right now, which is the basic device that has just one plate on the top and one plate on the bottom. They have different use cases. So you can do everything also with this. So I'm kind of overlapping a little bit, but what you can do here is you can put any object in here and charge it permanently with quantum energy. And what does that
Whoa.
mean? You basically increase the vibration and 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 optimize the energetic structure of anything you put in, and especially metals work really well. Like, so you see my ring here, for example, that's charged. And I mean, even people that are not so sensitive to energy, they can often, see the difference of that, of before and after. And you can put a rock or crystal in here, for example, and make the full potential come out. You can put a glass of water in here and optimize the water. You can, your plates at home, your glasses that you put on the table, you can charge them all with quantum energy, and then they have a higher vibration. And they look more beautiful, they appear more beautiful because they then transmit uh, more quantum energy. That's pretty much what you can do with it too. And then you can be your own homeopath
Mm.
because you can copy any frequency that exists in this block also. So I could take, let's say, an orange, an organic orange, and put it in here. And then let's say I had an empty capsule, not a charged one, put it in with that orange already in here after 10 or 15 seconds, and in the quantum block after 30 to 60 seconds, the frequency of the orange would be in the capsule. So now you can think about, okay, maybe there's a healing plan that would be great for me. Maybe I take a leaf of that healing plan, put it in, charge it on, a capsule or aluminum card or what have you. And then so you can leverage the frequency of that. And so, yeah, there's lots of possibilities. And yeah, the EMF protection, that is literally just one use case of this.
That's awesome. So when we're looking at the block or even the capsule, and you're talking about quantum energy, I know people are going to be like, quantum energy, like how does that even happen? Now, when the way I'm thinking about it, and tell me if I'm wrong, when I'm wearing the capsule, for example, is it kind of like a tuning fork in the sense that it's tuning in the right frequencies and the right energy from around me? And is that similar to the way the block would do the same thing? It's harmonizing kind of outward the certain energies and attracting other ones, better frequencies or healing frequencies.
I'm glad you're asking that question because this is really something I almost had forgotten to talk about. So what I'm saying now is actually, if one understands that, if they really understand it, they will start to really understand how this technology works. So the energy of the quantum block and the infinity block invites you into your own completeness, physically and energetically, and it supports you on that as well. So what does that mean? So just think of your optimal self, right? So I mean, to physically, your optimal self in an ideal physical state, and also energetically, right? So we're here to develop, to go through different issues and all of that, ultimately to become more of ourselves, of what we truly are. And the energy of that supports us in that in various ways. And you can see that on a physical level, but it really does that on an energetic level as well. And yeah, so in a way, it's like an energetic offer to us at all times to move in that direction, right? And people that have this at home, for example, they usually also report, okay, I used to have these downs in my life, right, where I just feel like, oh my God, everything is terrible and all that. And you still have these waves because that's so human, that's so natural, but you don't fall below a certain level anymore because it kind of like carries you upwards more and more. And then when we introduce certain frequencies, and I'll get into that a little bit more, yeah, that is also like an energetic offer to leverage that and to change something within you that may not work 100%. So let's take this card here. And by the way, we developed that with a network of very famous healers. Uh, one of them is Roman Hafner from Europe, that everybody there calls the Wunderkind. When he was born, he was like the opposite of our normal people that forget everything. He could see every frequency, every energy field, and he could not do the physical seeing. So he had to really learn very, very hard over
Mm.
many years that he could literally look at a person just to see just the matter or a chair, because he would see everything in energy. So he would look at you, see your heartbeat. He would see that maybe there's something in the intestines that um, may not be okay. And then he actually also learned on how to actually help and manipulate certain energy flows in order promote healing and things like that. Yeah, so he's a
Mm.
pretty special guy, and we work with him and others to develop frequencies that help people in their daily lives for certain use cases. Like we have a sleep and rest card for people that have difficult sleeping. This one is the inner peace card, and it looks like this here, and it has a mandala that actually resonates with that frequency on the back. And so this has been reported by everybody that wears this when they have like panic attacks or stressful times or
Mm.
anxiety, things like that. They take this card and it helps them to get out of this state of anxiety and more into this, find this inner peace, the space within you that we all have, right? It's nothing like magic. It's just like it's there, but we just get so out of it at times, and it helps you to find that again and expand it within you. So, so, and therefore, it's almost like a signal to you, like, hey, you've gotten this inner peace, and now it's just helping and supporting you to get in there. I call these energy cards or frequency cards like your healer for your pocket,
Yeah.
right? Because you can book sessions with a healer to help with certain issues, but then you may have to do it over and over again because that's how we are. We do something and then we'll just forget about it again, or I don't know, we're in the next anxiety situation. This you can just put in your pocket again, leverage it, and yep, there you go. So that's how that works.
Yeah, I'm so glad you talked about the frequency card. So anybody that's again, this is a great episode to be watching, not listening. Philip had like a gold-plated card, and then on, it says inner peace, and you have like 14. Or I think you emailed me last night. You're like, actually, we have 19 different frequencies that you can choose from like inner peace, weight loss, abundance, DNA repair. There's so many, and so people what they can do is they can walk around and just slide these cards in their pocket, and they can start to really manifest and embody that frequency. You start to tune into that frequency, which is pretty cool.
Exactly. And it is really something that is not just like a substitute. It's really something where we can get back into that, right? If I know, for example, that okay, so I tend to be very stressed and have a lot of anxiety, and I always worry about things, then then the inner peace card, for example, would be a great one to actually work with, because then we also set an intention that okay, maybe I really want to find this space in my life where I have more inner peace, because that may be a much more fun life to not be so stressed out all the time. And the card helps with that, and it really helps us to develop that from within. So it's a natural support, if you will. And we, yeah, it just helps us remember that how to do it.
And I'm curious because, well, real quick, which one is more powerful then, in your opinion? Is it the capsule or the frequency cards, or are they just completely different? It just kind of depends on what your goal and your motivation is.
Yeah, just from an energy perspective, the capsule is more powerful because of the spheres that we added there. It creates a larger field and to boost those frequencies out. And then specifically for the frequency set that's in the capsules, with the heal frequency and the vitamins and minerals, we found this to be very beneficial for people. And then they can also use the capsule actually to also charge the water, because you just lay it right next to it, and then the water will take on that frequency. Water absorbs frequency and energy like very, very quickly.
Hmm.
Mm, the cards are not as strong from an energy perspective, but they're fully enough to leverage the frequencies. So, for example, the capsule is much more stimulating, and therefore we wouldn't recommend to wear it at night unless you take out the spheres. The cards, for example, a lot of people, when they work through these things, they put these cards underneath their pillow also at night, so that they can even leverage it uh, at night without having to think about it really. And whether that is the DNA and cell protector or maybe the inner peace card, those are great cards you can do that with, or you just put it in your pocket. But it's not as strong as the capsule.
Yeah, and then the DNA and the is that like a popular one for you that you like to kind of just carry around at all times, or is that like the inner peace and DNA, or are those like the two that you slip in the back of your pocket just to kind of always remind you and like always kind of protecting that DNA? I mean, we're being bombarded, I think, all the time by toxins and glyphosate in the air, and just who knows, right? Is that so? Is that something that you regularly keep in there?
Let's say it that way. So I rotate these cards a lot because I almost check like every day. Okay, so what's the best card for me now or for
Ah,
today? That's how I do it. But more recently, the DNA and Cell Protector has been the card that I use and wear when I go into the public, if I go grocery shopping or anywhere, to just be protected from certain influences, outside influences that may be around. And it's a great feeling, like
yeah,
because and we can see energetically what happens with it because it really it basically signals to your cells, to the inside of your cell, you are strong
mm,
and you don't need to take on anything foreign and just boost that. And pretty much the same thing with the DNA. It's almost like a little layer of protection, but not in a way where it like cuts you off from anything. It's just, it lets your own inner strength grow cell and DNA wise while not letting anything in that's potentially harmful. So that's how I would describe it on an energetic level, at least.
yeah. I love that, but it's as a health coach and stuff, one of the things I always say to my clients is just like, for example, someone with MS or something. I'm like, you don't have MS. You don't have this disease. I'm like, your body's imbalanced, and once we change the input to whatever it is we probably need to remove some things, but once we change the input that your body's receiving, the body will heal on its own. It knows how to do it. It just needs the right input.
Yes, I mean that's the approach anyway. I mean there's certain things obviously that are more difficult to heal and get through than others, but the concept still remains more or less the same. That we can heal ourselves, and it just needs the right mindset and it needs the right ingredients and actions, and it's a very holistic approach, right? It really doesn't work by taking a pill and then it's all magically gone. It really that's really not the way. So yeah, no, I like your approach. Yeah.
And then one real quick question for, like, I know you mentioned vitamins and minerals. So by if I'm wearing the capsule, and by the way, guys, this capsule that I'm specifically wearing, Philip sent me. This is called testosterone booster. So any male that's over 35 years old, 35 and older, this is a really great capsule to be wearing because I'm getting all the vibrational harmonics and energy and frequencies that I need to be a thriving, vibrant male. Um, so, and on that note, then would I potentially needed to ditch my multivitamin? Would I not really need that because I'm tuning in the right vitamins and minerals and nutrients that I need for my body?
Yeah, so we find two different groups there of people that react in various ways. So one group doesn't seem to need any more physical supplements, at least not the ones that are provided on a frequency level. And we have a list, by the way, of the things that are in this so-called man's booster or in the heal capsule of what are the minerals and vitamins that are included. But then there's another group, and I belong also to that group that still takes physical supplements, but they can take less of those, and when they take them they can leverage these supplements in a much better way. So I felt that with C60, for example, or with um, even vitamin C and others. So if I take those, it's as if I can absorb
Mm.
those minerals and vitamins in a much better way. So it seems like as if the bioavailability of and the absorption of the cells increases with it. So we can't really explain how that works and why there seem to be two different groups, but yeah, that's pretty much how that works. So I mean, I would not advise anybody to now you have this capsule and then now suddenly leave away all supplements. That's really something you need to test out for yourself. But you may find really that the supplements you're taking you'll get a much better and greater benefit from it.
Awesome. Yeah. Very cool. And then last question for you on the frequency cards. I work with a lot of weight loss clients, and I saw that you had a frequency card dedicated specifically to weight loss. Like, how does that work? Like, do people just start losing weight? Because let me just start buying all my weight loss clients' frequency cards. Let's do it, baby.
It's a great question, and that was a pretty difficult one to release because we created this frequency again with our healers together, and obviously then we always look from an energetic perspective, what does it do and what does it provide. Then we had a first phase of tests because we don't ever release anything that hasn't been tested, and it worked very well, and we could already see, okay, these are the things that are happening. But then we figured, okay, hey, weight loss is just such a difficult beast because it's so unique. I mean, there's so
Hmm.
many different reasons why people can't lose weight. So we need to do more tests. So we did a second phase of tests, and then we did a third phase of tests. We have a Telegram group. It's a private Telegram group, but I'll send you the link to
Yeah,
that,
send that to
and
me.
you can maybe add in the video description if you want, because it's a user group and people can ask questions. We have special offers there for people, and it's just a fun group. And anyway, so we asked there, hey, who would like to participate in this broader test? And we had tons of reactions. Lots of people apparently wanted to lose weight and test. And across the board, there were great results. But what we found is what this does is it's not like magic where you just wear it and then you're losing weight because of it just by not doing anything.
Yeah.
You set an intention, and this card helps you to reduce the craving. That's one
Hmm.
thing. It increases the metabolism, and it also it it almost like sparks ideas and helps you with following through on certain things. So it's almost like what people have reported is they suddenly felt like, okay, I needed to eat more of this and really leave that away, and it was almost like an understanding suddenly of certain things. So it really helped them to go through certain shifts in their mental state of looking at the eating.
Yeah.
And yeah, and that's how they've gotten their results. It's basically those three things. And yeah, so I haven't really tested it because I don't need to lose any
Yeah.
weight. I know my wife tested it even though she also didn't need to lose weight, but she wanted to test it. And she had very clearly, like everybody else, okay, I have less craving of this, for example,
Interesting.
less the need to fill yourself up with something external. That's a very, very common theme that has been reported.
That's fascinating. Very very cool stuff.
So I would definitely say, if someone uses this card, really set an intention for it, and use it as, like an additional coach. You know what I mean? Like
Yeah.
something that supports you, but do your part. Still do your part. That's important.
Yeah. Hey, and really quick, one question I didn't ask you is, what's the significance of the name LeelaQ? I find that, Q I'm sure is for quantum, but uh, it's such an interesting
Yes.
name.
Yeah. So Leela Quantum, that is the name, or Leela Quantum Tech. Leela is it's Sanskrit, and it means divine play. So it is therefore we found just a very matching name for all of this, for the world of energies and frequencies. Our sun is actually also called Leela,
Love that.
uh, so that is an additional um, reason. And then quantum, obviously, we needed to have quantum in the name because it's about quantum energy. It's and by the way, I must say also, we call it quantum energy, and but you could call it also different, right? Maybe you call it life force energy or call it ether energy. I don't know if this is the right word for it, because what we're doing here is we know what that energy is, and we're giving it a name, right? So yeah, and now we're using this quantum energy, and now I think it makes sense to people. But the energy is what's most important, not the label.
Yeah, it's so funny because when I talked to Ian Mitchell about his quantum ozone capsules. You know, he's like he was dreading naming it. He's like, but that's what it is. He's like, it is quantum. It's organized energy. He's like, I don't know how else to phrase it.
Yep. Yeah, it's a and Ian is great in a way because he's one of those scientists that they're just amazing in describing things scientifically, but also having this bigger picture of being totally open-minded and seeing that there's so much more to it than just this little box that so many scientists play in
Yeah.
and never get out of. But hey, it's a struggle for everybody to explain certain things, and I must say science is playing catch up, right? It's not that science is already all the way there, and now we're inventing stuff. No, it's like humanity is constantly inventing stuff. Like every day there's new inventions, new stuff coming up, and and science then tries to explain how these things work. And I bet over the next 2 3 years we'll see a lot more great developments even, and then some new things may have been explained by then by science, but others will have no clue, okay, why they work and how they work, and then we'll need to figure that out again. So I think we just need to be mindful of that, and say, okay, that's the way it is. But it doesn't mean just because science can't 100% explain a certain process that that process isn't working or is not there.
Yeah, like you said earlier, I mean, I'm all about results, and you show the results from all the case studies, but then even the great story about the autistic children, it's like there's a huge difference. We're noticing that as practitioners and teachers. We're noticing these kids, they're changing. So that's a result, and results don't lie. So science or no science, explain that.
Yep.
Hey, I'm curious, are there any, you guys are doing a lot. Are there any exciting projects that you're working on right now?
Yeah, so I think the DNA and cell protector card was just a recent, very important project for us, and we've dedicated a lot of resources to it to test that out and to optimize that frequency. We're very happy with that, and now it's for me really, and we're going to release a new frequency card also. It's called the Forever Young
Mm.
frequency. But the really most exciting for me are the three studies I mentioned earlier. The new dark field microscopy study. It's going to be here in the U.S. Then the for regarding chronic Lyme disease. That's somewhat close to my heart because my wife actually had the chronic Lyme
Oh,
disease,
wow.
and yeah, for many years, and it was diagnosed 5 years after she actually had gotten it. So it was way delayed to like get rid of it quickly, and it was pretty profound. And even with her abilities and everything, it was, I mean, for her it was a teacher. We know that, right? So it wasn't just something that she came across. It was a teacher for her to learn certain things, and also it probably was something, like she always says, that it helped me actually to get even more into what I'm passionate about, because
Mm.
the moment I found that out, I was diving into everything alternative health, or what could possibly help. And we met people like, went to Dr. Klinghart's office, for example, someone that is pretty well known in the functional medicine realm. And yeah, and we started doing lots of different things. I started to look at different things, and I think that really opened my mind and my focus into all of that. And that's how I ended up also getting into C60, probably because there was this underlying impulse, and with this energy or frequency medicine now that we're doing same thing. She is completely over that, so she has no
Beautiful.
symptoms whatsoever anymore. So she's completely healed, and so we know, it's something. If you have that, it's terrible. It's for those people. I can feel. I know how that is because of the personal situation that we had. But it's also something. Don't lose hope, because you can get over it, and that is actually also pretty much the same thing, like what you said, that you just need to be. And that's also what Dr. Klingert says. If you can be strong, if you can be, you got to be in such a strong state that the limes don't matter to you. And
I
that
love
is
that.
something you can work on various levels. But those studies, and then with those kids, the study is going to be in India. that is for me the most exciting right now, to be honest. And yeah, we're looking forward to helping with those studies and then report the results, once we get them.
Yeah, I can't wait to follow up with you and see what those results are when that gets completed. Hey, before we
Yep.
jump into some lightning round questions, I just wanted to ask: is there anything that I didn't ask you that you wish I had?
I think you asked great questions. So there's nothing more. I think I talked about, what how it works and what the differences are. I would I would just want to say something to the listeners, because there are always some people out there that are curious, that are like, okay, they feel somewhere within them that, yeah, there is more out there, but they haven't maybe dived into that really. Hey, just just for a few days, just take 3 days or so, and in the morning when you wake up, for just a minute or two, just tune in with yourself. Don't do anything else. Don't grab your phone right away. Don't start talking to your wife right away, or do anything else. Just tune in with yourself. Feel your breath, feel yourself, and maybe, just think about the day. Just
Mm,
wake up, just getting into contact with yourself, and then at night, just before you fall asleep, do the same thing. Maybe ask yourself, how do I feel? Those are things we've forgotten how to do. And that is the way back to feeling ourselves and filling ourselves up with the true self again. And that makes us strong. And then from there, from that space, we can get anything done. We can get through anything also. And if you do that just for 2, 3 days, just
mm.
notice if you feel a difference.
Such great stuff, man. I mean, yeah, you're right. Just that level of awareness, and I was just thinking, as you're saying that, I was thinking about my morning this morning and how I just got up and I was like, all right, time to go. I got stuff to do. And man, how powerful it would be just to take a breath and just kind of like take a moment, because you're going to get to the day. Don't worry about it. But to take a breath and just be grateful for this body that we're in and this breath and this air and, the blood that's pumping us, we forget about those things. So yeah, it's so huge. All right, you ready for some lightning round questions?
Go for it.
All right. If the old you could see the new you, what would the new you say?
The new you would say, well, thanks for what you've done, that I can now be where I'm at today. And don't worry about all the, quote unquote mistakes
Mm,
you've made, or things you think you may have done wrong, because ultimately you learned from them, and, you know, it helped you to be where I'm now today.
love that. What are some choices that you made who made that made you who you are today?
Um, Well, I think one very profound choice was when I was in a very difficult state. I lived in Germany at the time, and yeah, it was where I felt like, okay, now my life is sort of a mess, and I felt like there is more to it, but I had no clue how to get there, and I went to an open house that was there, and they offered some energy work and a meditation, and I went, and I was like, "Ah, this sounds crazy," but I somehow felt called to go there, and I met some amazing people, and that kind of helped me to get more into yoga, helped me to get more into meditation, and that was sort of like this little spark that
Mm,
I needed to get on this path, and not just be like everybody else, just in the corporate world, just follow that, but really find myself again. And on that path, once I went to Thailand for a month or two with a backpack. Actually, I think it was just a month because I didn't have more time, unfortunately. But I wanted 2 months originally, and I ended up half of the time I went to a monastery there, and to meditate with the monks, and I just felt called to do that. And I'm not a Buddhist or anything. It's like it's really my own view of the world, but I felt like this will help me to find my space again and my peace. And it was an amazing experience waking up at 3:30 every morning, going into your first hour of meditation, then do work. And then we had like walking meditation and again meditation and all of that. And it was just amazing.
Wow.
It was a short time if you think of a whole life, but it was very impactful for me. And yeah, I think those are the two main things that come to mind that have been a long time ago now already, but they really were very impactful for the rest of my life up to date.
Yeah, very cool. Who's someone in the health and wellness world that inspires you? You know, you're doing so much amazing stuff, but who inspires you?
Well, I think in general, the people that inspire me right now are the ones that look at the holistic picture and that don't lose the ability to speak out and to try to find a way to get the truth to the people and be very sincere about it and really care from the bottom of their hearts um, about the well-being of the people. And there are just a lot of people out there, and I can't name them all, but I think those are the ones that are earning my respect and that I find inspiring. And then just a few names also, I find Ian Mitchell inspiring in his way,
Yeah.
really. And then there's someone called Kay Elmer I find very inspiring too in the way that he's approaching things. But there are many more too.
Yeah. Awesome. I'm a big reader. Are there any, you've with your background, I'm just curious, are there any books that, you'd recommend people read that had a huge impact on your life?
I can name one book. I don't read much anymore. I don't, but I used to read a lot. And there's one book specifically a very long time ago that I read, I think in 1993, and that was Siddhartha by Hermann Hesse. And I don't know if I can recommend to people to read it because you all may in a completely different state right now, but I can say for me at that time that had an impact, that book, because it brought up stuff that I had never thought about before. And yeah, I think it was also added on to this journey that I ended up being on later. So
Very nice.
yeah.
I love that recommendation. Um, any rituals or hacks that you do on a daily break or practices that you do on a daily, daily basis?
Yeah, I don't think there's anything that I really do every day. But I do a lot of yoga. So I'm a Kundalini yoga teacher,
Mm,
and I don't really teach much, just every now and then, at a festival here or there. But it's not like really I don't feel like called to teach yoga on a regular basis. But for myself, I use it, and that's also why I did that teacher training actually, just for myself. And so I do yoga on a very regular basis. I do meditate, not on a very regular basis, but I do meditate quite a bit. And yeah, I work with energy and frequencies a lot, obviously, just because of the job and the calling.
yeah.
And yeah, and I use these products because they do help me. And yeah, we're on this journey in life, we're having new experiences every day, and it never stops that you're learning or that you're encountering a challenge in your life. And so yeah, so I do take tools that I have available to also help myself through it.
Beautiful. I want you to finish this sentence because 2020 was a crazy year for a lot of people. The pandemic crushed people's morale and their finances and their jobs, but I saw a lot of people thrive. And so I want you to reframe this sentence. 2020 was the greatest gift because dot dot dot.
Because it helps humanity to truly wake up. It's been probably the year with the most awakening and also visible awakening of all the last decades, at least as long as I've been alive here. And that is a gift. That is truly a gift. We're having a scissors effect. On one hand, all the terrible things happening. On the other hand, it's really a big awakening process on many different levels, right? The ultimate awakening is really that we remember who we truly are, to connect to our higher self again, hear our inner voice and all of that. But there's a lot of other awakenings that are happening and can happen also on the way there. And I think all of those are kind of happening simultaneously, and that is the positive I can see in this.
Yeah, nice. Last but not least, Philip, where can people find you and some of the awesome stuff you guys are doing at LeelaQ?
Yep. So it is, the website leelaq.com, LeelaQ.com. That is certainly one, but where can they find me personally? That would be the Telegram group, actually.
Mm,
It's again, a user group, very nice, kind-hearted people that all, like to talk about these topics, share experiences or ask questions. And I'm personally very involved. So, you will see me interact there. And then since Telegram offers that option, you could even, you know, click on my icon and then send me a private message. And I always answer. It may sometimes take up to 48 or 72 hours because I get a lot of messages, but I never leave a message unanswered.
nice. Love that. Awesome. Philip from LeelaQ, thank you so much for being on the show, brother.
Thanks so much. I appreciate the invite.